n8n now has a set of skills that instructs Claude or Codex on how to use their MCP to now efficiently and autonomously create entire workflows. Let's immediately jump to how you can install these skills. The first thing you'll want to do is head over to this repository. The link for it will be in the description of the video. Then scroll down into where it instructs us on how you can install this specific plugin inside of Claude. Let me start off a Claude instance. And once I have the Claude instance, let me just paste that command down and hit enter. You should then see a success message. After that, grab the next command, paste it in there, hit enter, and now you'll have to select if you want this to be installed as a user scope, project, or local scope. I usually go with project scope just because whenever I'm actually going to use this skill, I'll just go inside of this project and avoid potentially polluting Claude's context window, even if it's just with the skills metadata. The next step will be inside of your n8n instance. Go over to settings, select instance level MCP, and by the way, this is my n8n version. Make sure that yours is updated as well, as most of the MCP's tools will require a more recent version. Now all you have to do is click on Enable MCP Access. After you do, you'll get an OAuth as well as an access token. Copy this OAuth and replace it here where it says URL. By the way, this command will also be in the description of the video. Click here to copy your access token and replace it inside of that same command. Now there's two ways to do this. You can either execute this command or you can just create a .mcp.json, get the JSON configuration down here and just paste it inside of the mcp.json. So just a quick explanation of what we did here. This MCP is what guarantees our connection between Claude Code and our n8n sessions. And I'm intentionally saying session, not workflows, because this doesn't give access to just one specific workflow, but the entire n8n platform you have hosted, allowing you to create, modify, delete different workflows. And what we did down here is actually install the plugins inside of Claude Code so that from these guidelines, Claude understands how to use the MCP tools more efficiently. All right, with this done, since I've just added an MCP, I'll want to Control-C to close my Claude instance and then open a new instance so that it identifies that new MCP server and allows me to choose if I want to actually use it. So let me select the first option, and now it should identify that MCP and successfully use these skills to accomplish any task that I give it. So this is my prompt. Create a new workflow. It should be a webhook trigger that receives a prompt. It then goes through an AI agent that is able to use OpenRouter Gemini 2.5 Flash to answer the user's question. They then get a response back from the webhook. So really simple, not such a well thought prompt, but it should be enough for Claude to understand what we need and use the tools to build our workflow. It's first reading through the skills and now finally calling the actual MCP. And as you can see, we have no workflows created yet. And the interesting thing is once it calls the MCP, it understands that maybe there's some tools from the MCP that it doesn't quite understand yet. And then it loads additional skills to have the full context of how to effectively use those tools. Now, some of the more core n8n users might have noticed that we have had the n8n MCP for a while. So this has been a possibility. But soon enough, I'll show you how this works and why using skills in addition with the MCP just makes it much more efficient. By the way, I forgot to cross these off, but we're done with how to install it. And we're currently on the step on how you can actually use it, which is just typing in plain English and waiting for your workflow to be completely built by an agent, okay? By the way, done, workflow created, and connections verified. It seems like there's nothing here, but if I refresh the page, it should show up with the actual workflow that was just created. And there it is. Now you'll probably have to organize this since the nodes are overlapping, but essentially this is the idea. And because I built it with a webhook, Claude can actually send a curl to that webhook and see what it responds back. Not only that, but it can actually fetch for execution and really understand how the workflow played off. I just created a key inside of OpenRouter, and now after we add the credential, then we might be able to add the model. Actually, it's already selected, so Gemini 2.5 Flash, don't exactly know how that happened. That was the only credential required, so now let's have Claude test the workflow. My prompt is as simple as test the workflow by sending a curl and verifying if the response comes back successfully. This is interesting. It actually detected some steps I forgot. For example, to actually publish the workflow so that it could test the curl, but it had all the tools to execute that, did so, and now is executing the curl. So there it is. Apparently it asked for the capital of France. The answer was retrieved, tested, and validated successfully from Claude Code. Now, obviously, this is a really simple example, but a while ago I did post a video where I created a Chrome extension that served as an agent to create these workflows. But because essentially I was grabbing the actual JSON from each node, so for example, if you don't know this, test.json, each one of these nodes are essentially a JSON with specifications. But if you go this route, you'll likely reach the maximum context window pretty fast, additionally just spending a lot of tokens along the process. And now that we've gone through the process of how to use it, let's understand how it works, because once you understand it, you'll get how the iterations throughout using this MCP and these skills will just make it better and better throughout the upcoming months, until eventually creating an entire automations will actually be the easiest thing ever. And the explanation is actually pretty simple. You have a Claude Code instance that understands it has an n8n MCP to perform actions inside of a given workflow. Now, the problem with only having the MCPs is that it's like me trying to use my printer for the first time without using a manual. I was able to make it work without using the manual, but it obviously took me way much longer than if I did. And usually taking longer for agents means that it's processing a lot of tokens and iterating through this process of trying to use the MCP tool inside of n8n, getting a bad response, understanding that was a bad response, maybe even browsing the internet to understand what went wrong, then using the MCP again, going back to n8n, discovering that there's still an issue, going back, and just this loop is costing you money and time. So here's where skills comes in. Before actually using the tool, as you've seen before in our test, it'll actually read the manual to only then use that specific tool. If it identifies from the MCP a tool will likely have to use, it'll immediately read through the skill before trying to use that specific tool, making it much more efficient before actually processing that request. All right, I guess that's it. Leave a like, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then.